Welcome to the show, everybody. Hope you had a good weekend. Very busy weekend now as one of the final weekends in the 2024 election cycle. Presidential elections, Senate elections, every member of the House of Representatives up for re-election. And it is multiple rallies a day at this point. We can't cover all of them. I don't want to cover all of them. I wouldn't subject you to covering all of them. But Barack Obama, you remember the guy, right? The former president?
Obama.
Exactly. Barack Obama this weekend in Las Vegas delivered what was truly a masterclass in political speech, distilling an election between two candidates who really shouldn't even be close. The fact that this is a coin flip election is a sign of the real problems in this country. Kamala Harris said, "I'm not going to criticize half of America." But I'm not Kamala Harris. I'll do it. We have a problem here in this country. Barack Obama really distilling down what's at stake here, and Obama choosing to go right to the dementia cognitive decline situation with failed former President Donald Trump.
I've spoken about Donald Trump's intentions, what his concerns are. They are not you. But there's another concern that I have about Donald Trump, which is his competence.
Yes.
Have you seen him lately? I mean, he is out there, he's giving these 2.5-hour speeches, just a word salad. You don't know what he's saying. You don't, at any given moment. He held a town hall meeting where, now the point of a town hall meeting, I've had like maybe 1,000 of them. The point is you meet with people and you answer their questions. He just stopped. He's all like, I don't feel like taking questions anymore. And then we're just going, he just played music for half an hour. Just swayed to Ave Maria and YMCA. I mean, imagine if Jackie or I did that. Now our playlist might be better. But it is strange behavior.
All right, so you get the point. Barack Obama going directly at the growing certainty that something is just wrong with Trump. And if you paid any attention to Trump's rallies this weekend, mounting evidence of that. But we'll get to that later because Barack Obama also addressed those who feel sort of hopeless, sort of like, it's all looking so bad. And does my vote even matter? And are we really going to achieve anything? And Barack Obama laying out, yes, elections matter and your vote matters.
As frustrating as politics can be sometimes, elections really do matter. Listen, I understand how, especially in today's climate, politics just seems so mean and nasty, and there's so many lies floating around, and people get on these doom scrolls on TikTok, and it's like, oh man, that's terrible. Oh, that's worse. That's terrible. Oh my God. And so you get frustrated, and it feels like nothing's gonna work. But the truth is, when you vote, it matters. It can make your life better, or it can make it worse. Sometimes I talk to folks who don't think it's going to make a difference whether Kamala Harris or Donald Trump wins. Yeah, no, you hear, you guys know people like this, right? I mean, they're not bad people. They're just like, politics, it's not going to make any difference in my life. They figure it's not going to have an impact. And I constantly have to remind them, yes, whoever's president, they're not going to end poverty overnight. They're not going to end racism. Right? You're not suddenly going to not have to go to your job and listen to your boss. Things are not going to suddenly be perfect. But you know what? It makes a difference. When I passed the Affordable Care Act, almost 50 million people got health care that they didn't have before. That made a difference in their lives. More than 50 million people with pre-existing conditions can no longer be denied coverage or charged more. It made a difference to them. Listen, when I was president, I'll give you just one other example. And I want you to use this example when you're talking to folks who say it's not going to make any difference. I had been talking to scientists for a while, and so in my last year in office, we put together a playbook for how to deal with the eventuality of a pandemic. Because scientists had been saying with globalization and travel, et cetera, rising populations, that at some point there was going to be a pandemic.
Right.
And so I said to my team, I said, we got to have a plan, just like you do for hurricanes or tornadoes or natural disasters. So we put together this whole playbook. And we practiced the playbook. We'd get all the agencies. This is how we're going to respond. This is how to make sure that the public health systems in all the states are working. Here's how we're going to think about the schools. And when Donald Trump came in, we gave over this playbook to them. And
I think we all know what happened with that playbook. This is a really good call for civic engagement. And as I often say to people when they think they've got this, you can't defeat this gotcha. When did these elections ever come down to one vote? Well, I think there are a couple of examples of elections that came down to one vote. There are certainly precincts that came down to one vote, but think a little more about that idea. When would my vote alone make a difference? Let me frame it a different way. A lot of people have that thought. It's not just you sitting there going, when would just my vote make a difference? If you think of all of the people to whom that occurs, if that whole group stays home, if everybody who says to themselves, should I vote? When did it come down to one vote? If that whole constituency stays home, now you have an election flipping constituency that is saying, I'm not going to vote because it's never come down to one vote as far as I know. That entire group swings an election depending on whether they stay home or they go out and they vote. Barack Obama also talking during this event about spending a long time cleaning up the mess of Republicans and then what he handed to Donald Trump when Donald Trump took over.
Yeah, it was good because it was my economy. Some of y'all remember what it was like in Nevada when I came into office. The worst financial crisis in history. The housing market collapsed here in Nevada. You remember that? Boarded up homes everywhere. Folks' mortgages underwater. I spent 8 years cleaning up that mess that the Republicans had left me. And then I handed over to Donald Trump 75 straight months of job growth. And all he did with it was give a tax cut to the people who didn't need it, drove up the deficit in the process, and now he wants to do it all over again. So, if you're talking to somebody, and y'all know somebody who's all like, well, I don't know, I remember Trump, the economy that was pretty good. You remind them, it wasn't good because of anything he did.
All right. And I think as good as Barack Obama is at this, I will mention presidents have relatively little to do with the economy. The American economy tends to move more or less in parallel with the economies of our Western democratic allies, although it's worth mentioning that when you look at, for example, inflation, the period of high inflation and then lower inflation during and after the pandemic, even though these economies were moving in tandem, we had lower peak inflation and a faster decline in the United States. And so certainly on the margins, presidents make a difference. But Barack Obama doing a very good job of pointing out all of these stories about how Democrats are terrible for the economy and Republicans are great for the economy. Not only do the facts not bear it out, but they aren't even really being honest about what the history is. Few people as good at this as Barack Obama is, and hopefully he'll be on the campaign trail heavily between now and November 5th, and I believe that that is indeed the plan. Donald Trump has made it clear in a Truth Social post that if he gets elected, he will prosecute people in response to imaginary voter fraud using the Justice Department as his personal tool for revenge. And it's crazy how conservative news outlets are framing this story, like this headline from Ben Shapiro's Daily Wire, which says Governor Burgum defends Trump against leftist outrage over his demand for fair elections. Meanwhile, when independent media outlet Mother Jones is reporting on the same story, their headline is the Trump plan to prosecute election officials and suppress the vote. So you get a totally different idea of the story depending on who's reporting it. Our sponsor, Ground News, makes it really easy to see these differences. For every news story, Ground News shows me a breakdown of how each outlet is framing the story, who owns the outlet, what their political bias is, so you can make up your own mind. I can also follow Ground News' dedicated 2024 presidential election page for each candidate, which is an amazing tool right now just to sort out fact from fiction on the race. And my viewers get 40% off the same unlimited access Vantage plan that I use when you go to ground.news/Pacman. The link is in the description.